Welcome, everyone, to another edition of SCRC's Let's Talk Caregiving. I'm your host, Roberto Velasquez, President and CEO of SCRC, and I'm here as always with my co-host, Marta Rañón, our Executive Vice President.
Hey, Roberto.
Hey, Marta. Today we have a special guest, Rachel Barnes. Rachel is SCRC's CFO and accountant for the agency and has the longest tenure at SCRC, spanning over 27 years. And through this time, Rachel has also been a caregiver for her elderly father and then 10 years later for her elderly mother. Thank you, Rachel, for joining this podcast today. We're really thrilled that you're going to be joining us because we want to talk about caregiving over time. So it's very appropriate that you've been with the agency for such a long time and actually have not only worked here, but also have become a caregiver not once, but 2 times over this span. And, this year is really interesting, and congratulations to all of us. Yay. 2022 is 35th anniversary of Southern Caregiver Resource Center.
Woo-hoo!
And yay! We started off, the agency started off in 1987 with 3 employees and a budget of $150,000 a year. And now we're over 40 employees and over $5 million budget a year. So we've really grown quite a bit over this period of time. And we've helped thousands of families over these years, really helping them work with their loved ones who they provide care and support to. And what's really interesting, and again, so glad you're here, Rachel, is the high percentage, roughly 60% of our clients, our caregivers, come back to the agency over time, multiple times, due to caregiver experiences, different changes in caregiver experiences. And I know all of us have been caregivers. So again, I'm really glad that you're here to talk about these multiple experiences.
Rachel, how exciting. I mean, wow, what an amazing feat to have been at this agency for such a long period of time. I'm curious, what was it like? Because I've seen pictures of you from the beginning and you look amazing. And wow, tell us a little bit more about that experience.
Well, you mean about being with the agency or about caregiving?
Well, about both. I mean, about the growth of the agency. Roberto was mentioning, we had 4 initially, and now we have over 40 staff members. That's a big drastic change.
I'll tell you, I mean, it's always been an agency that I've felt very honored to be a part of. And you're right, it has changed. I'm 64 years old. So when I first started with the agency, when I first started with caregiving, it was almost a different era. My father, he was this big, fun, gregarious man. And my mom and I loved to cook and he loved to eat. And so, we're always twittering around him like he was sort of, the little king. So the transition was slow, the switch over between us taking care of him because we wanted to versus us needing to take care of him. My dad had post-polio syndrome. So, all of these different aging diseases really hit him especially hard. It was difficult, to watch him as he diminished, both physically and mentally. And the process itself took about 10 years. So during that time, my mom was his primary caregiver. And she was up in LA. My sister was a physical therapist, so she was able to handle, and help with the exercises, the mobility issues, what have you. But the brunt of the caregiving really fell on my mom, and I spoke to her every day on the phone. I drove up once a month for at least a weekend and twice a month if she needed me. But when there were care issues that we couldn't figure out, I always used the FCs at the agencies as counselors. They were a big help. And not only that, we were able to use the fact sheets. Those fact sheets were really helpful for us. They were in our library and we had them for specific issues. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I, as you know, I also was a caregiver and utilized the services of this agency when I was going through that period of time. And, it's really interesting that a lot of our staff, Roberto, has come through our agency and continues to work there, are caregivers or have been caregivers.
Well,
I
I've mentioned this before myself. I was also a caregiver, a very, very brief period of time for my father, but a longer period of time for my mom, and she's passed away since. But when you talk about Rachel, utilizing the FCs or the family consultants, that was a blessing for me as well and for my family because as close as we are, my siblings and I, it was it was very challenging, and we would start to kind
Mhm.
of butt heads about what was right and what was wrong and who was doing it right and who should help more and who shouldn't help. And
Mhm.
it was the FCs that actually taught me how to, and I'm well, at the time I wasn't the president and CEO, but I was there as a staff member of senior management. But they're the ones that taught me how to run a family meeting, how
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
take everybody's opinions and figure it out and have a meaningful conversation because everybody's trying to help, as you said. But at some point, it becomes not just you're just wanting to, but you needing to, and then you're have all these different conflicting ideas of how to care for somebody. So yeah, it was very important for me as well to have that connection and knowledge gained through the family consultants. And we hear those stories every day.
Rachel, I'm curious too. You mentioned that you were a caregiver and then now you are currently a caregiver. How has that been different for you?
well, my dad died in 2010. In 2010, yes, and my mom carried on by herself in Los Angeles, and she made a bunch of friends at Sage, which is a program ran by retirees through Cal State Northridge. She met a wonderful man, and they moved in together, and they've been together 7 years now. They have a full time housekeeper, and she cleans the house, cooks for them. And, we were really fortunate to have her. During the 1 year we were down for the pandemic, I didn't get to see her. So, now mom needs more help, keeping up with her bills, not necessarily paying them, but just, remembering who the gardener is and, whether or not she paid the pool man. And she has mobility issues, which she's been really slow to accept. So she broke her hip, and her wonderful partner kept her at home for his rehabilitation. When I'm in town, she often calls me multiple times and asks me the same questions over and over again. And when this first started happening, I'd get irritated with her, because we don't like to accept that our parents are aging and won't be around forever.
Mhm.
But, the social workers at our agency are really, really nice.
Hmm.
And working with them has really helped me and taught me to sort of accept this cycle of life as natural and to handle my mom more with compassion and kindness. Because, in the end, Roberto, family is everything.
That's right.
That is correct. And I know that a lot of families, and this is what I love about this agency, is we close the cases of families who are our clients when they tell us to close the case. So we have clients who've been actual active clients for 20 years. And usually they're working more so with traumatic brain injuries or things of that nature. And that it might be their adult child who was in a car accident and now they need care, and they've been providing care for years and years and years. But with dementia and Alzheimer's, and people living so much longer, that whole longevity, on average, it's like 8 to 9 years or so. But the truth is that the disease expands for, maybe 20 plus years as well. And people are living longer. And so there's all kinds of changes that occur, especially with cognitive decline. Over time, you might think as a caregiver, oh, I got it, I'm good, all I needed was that support group. But things change, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, there's something else happening. And it's nice to be able to reconnect and start your case over.
And not only reconnect, but that network of support from people from employees in this case who understand what you're going through, because sometimes we do, and I don't know about you, but at least I know with me, family members or even friends were not fully aware of the changes that the person I was caring for was going through. And so even though they were well intentioned, I knew that wasn't the reality, right? Oh, just give her this and she'll be fine, or just keep quizzing her on her past and she'll remember. And it's like, that's not how dementia works. But it was an eye-opening experience for me to really kind of put everything aside and say, okay, I really need to figure out what it is to be a caregiver and everything that it entails, and who can help me, who understands what I'm going through fully.
Yeah, and I'll say that in past podcasts that we've had, families talk about the denial that is involved with seeing your family member getting older and changes occurring, and you needing to kind of jump in and realizing that and stepping in. Martha, I know you want to say something.
Yeah, well, I was just curious about Rachel because, again, you have that unique perspective of having been here at the beginning of the agency, now so many years later. Looking ahead, how do you see the agency evolving, but also the work of the caregiver, really the role of the caregiver? Now we have all of this technology, right? We're doing things online. This podcast, it was not something that was available to us caregivers back in the day. So I am very hopeful that as caregivers, as we are seeing more people becoming caregivers, there will be these tools available that we are going to be able to provide. And that to me is exciting. But I just wanted to kind of get that from your perspective. How do you see that role of the caregiver changing with the needs that we all have?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because, one of the questions I would have is, why didn't my mom ever access the resources we have at the Caregiver Center? And really, the reason is that she didn't want to get on the computer. She didn't want to have to do that. And I think that what's going to happen is our aging population is going to be more and more computer savvy. So we can get on with and look at the podcasts ourselves, as we see our spouses or whoever ourselves need help, we can access that information ourselves. Whereas it's something that, for example, my mom, who's 86, can't really do.
Yeah, and it is important, and one of the things that I know that we've strived to do at SCRC is to really kind of make accessible the different programmings that we have. We created the iCare portal, and there's all kinds of online education and podcasts and caregiver tips and things that family members who often are working as well can access information at any time of the day instead of having to come to a specific workshop and take time away from home or time away from work. And it's really been beneficial from the families that have connected.
And to add to that is, this pandemic, if it anything has taught us that we can diversify our ways of offering these services. Now we can include family members who might not be living with us, who maybe were not as involved in the caregiving responsibilities, right? That maybe sometimes as caregivers we get resentful because, gosh, I wish my sister would step in and help more, but she's so far away. Now they could all click together on the same live stream event that we provide. They can watch the same tip video by sending a link and clicking on it. They can listen to the same podcast. And so now you have this ability to create a bigger extension of this network of care for the caregiver. And that to me is really exciting.
Yeah, it is. And Rachel, I know you and I have been working together for years and years now. And who would have thought a few years ago we would be doing these, Zoom conferences and enjoying the FaceTime and all these things and working from distances, still being productive on the same day. And it's the same thing as Martha, is talking about it, being able to connect with all your family and have these conversations, or even just sharing some fun times with mom, over the internet on a Zoom call with friends in the background and things of that nature. So it is really kind of a cool thing.
Rachel, have you been able to do that with your family, with your mom?
Well, sorry, I know you just asked me that, but Roberto, I was just thinking about when I first started at the agency, I got my first cell phone. And I would be sitting at my computer working, and it would ring. It's like, wow. Now, I mean, we can't basically function without a cell phone. And the whole concept of having our files on the computer, that was brand new, putting together a filing system and what have you. So there have been a lot of changes in the agency. And boy, I can't even imagine what it'll be like 20 years from now.
Maybe we'll be teleporting to work.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I just want to beam somewhere.
Yes, we're going to beam each other.
We're going to beam each other. But it is astonishing. And the one thing, though, that is really important, and this has been proven over time, and even when you talk about what the future needs are family caregivers, over time, what we've seen through research, through our own experiences, is that the needs of family caregivers are pretty much consistent. The need for education about the disease that they're dealing with, the need for emotional support, the need for some relief, like through our respite programs, the need for support groups and counseling. Those are all pretty much universal needs. What changes is how you deliver them. Maybe in the future there's a different technology and stuff, but caregiving, I think the needs will be pretty constant. It's just will be a different way of how to deliver them, maybe 20 years from now. But what we definitely also know is that the need for more families to connect to the services is going to be even greater, because we're already experiencing a change in the amount of caregivers available, family caregivers available per person that they provide care to. It used to be like, there was 3 to 1, and now you're lucky if it's 1 to 1 from the standpoint of family caregivers or members available to help with the loved one that's existing, because we all are having less children, so there's less people to help. So you got to actually really expand your network of people to take care of. I know we've had many conversations, and sometimes we don't even talk about caregivers as family, but as partners or friends, or just extended network of care versus just family caregiver, because it's not always just a family caregiver.
I wanted to ask Rachel, as we are wrapping up, that having had these different experiences as a caregiver, now given all the technology that is available, how do you utilize that? Maybe for other caregivers who are listening, might get some tips or suggestions on how you can connect. Especially given the distance, given the pandemic, given the need to stay healthy and isolated, how do you, as a caregiver, utilize some of that technology with your mom?
Really, I just do it for her. Because she doesn't want to have anything to do with the computer. If she wants me to order something, I get online, I order everything for her from Nordstrom's, or whatever it is she wants. I set up her online access to her different bills she has to pay, and she'll call me and have me take care of that for her when it needs to be done. And so basically, unfortunately, I have been unable to teach her how to do it.
But now you're doing
that's reality.
And you are doing it now. Oh
yeah. And so I just keep thinking that my granddaughters are going to have to do this for me in 20 years.
Well, again, that just shows you about technology. Before, you had to go to your parents' house or your grandmother's house and crack out the checkbook and all this stuff. And now with technology, here we are 35 years since we started the agency. The agency was founded with all this technology and making things maybe a little bit easier for family caregivers to connect and to stay on top of the issues that they're dealing with as it relates to caregiving. Well, that's all the time we have left for this edition of Let's Talk Caregiving. To hear more of our podcasts, follow us on your favorite podcasting platform or visit our website at scrc.care. I want to thank Martha for co-hosting another important discussion, our guest Rachel Barnes, and our audience for listening in. If you're providing support to a loved one, you don't have to do this alone. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. To connect to our programs and services, visit our website at scrc.care or call us at 1-800-827-1008. If you're living outside of San Diego and Imperial counties, visit caregivercalifornia.org to find the Caregiver Resource Center nearest you. To support our efforts and make a tax-deductible donation, please go to scrc.care and click on the Donate tab. And remember, SCRC is here for you, caring for those who care for others.